Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
The Bears.
Because of the way they play the nickel corner here, and the nickel corner plays 88-85% of the snaps. He's got to be like part linebacker.
The Bears.
When you're in the scouting room, there's going to be differences of opinion.
The Bears.
Once coaches get involved, of course, they've got their own opinions about what fits best for what they want to do, and that could be drastically different than what the scouts say.
Well, you're looking at traits, and he tested very, very well.
The Bears.
One thing good about Kevin, he's been with two other organizations, as well as being the commissioner of the Big Ten. He's been around.
The Bears.
With Greg Olson, Jerry didn't want to get rid of him. I didn't want to get rid of him. Nobody wanted to get rid of him. One guy wanted to get rid of him, Mike Martz, because Mike Martz didn't know what the hell to do with him. We tried to talk Lovey out of hiring Mike Martz for a month and a half. He's playing zone, but number one, he doesn't get enough depth with the drop. But who the hell's giving? How many times does a 305, 310-pound defensive tackle drop into coverage, especially in a key situation?
The Bears.
Greg, why are teams wrong on quarterback evaluation so often?
Number one, it's a hard position to evaluate. There's probably not as many real good quarterback evaluators as there needs to be.
The Bears. The Bears. The Bears.
Welcome, everyone, to a fresh edition of GTF, Gabriel Talks Football. My name is Aldo Gandia, and this is an incredible day for the Chicago Bears and their offseason pursuit to build a championship-type roster, and we're covering it here today and throughout the week. But let's start with Gabriel Talks Football, GTF. There he is. There's my man. Greg Gabriel, how are you, my friend?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas indeed, man. It's been a good few days here, huh?
Well, that's a good week.
Yeah.
There's only been two signings today so far, but and one just happened like 5 minutes ago. So, and by the way, anybody who's tuning in, if you see anything, tell us, because we can't get into our X feeds while we're doing this.
Yeah.
Okay, so just let us know. And I've got Eric doing the same thing to send me a text, because I can look at a text if he sends it, because my phone will beep. But
nice.
Yeah, I mean, you go in last week, get two trades. They also signed Durham Smythe, the backup tight end, who's a really good football player. And now they finish off the offensive line, getting the center today, the best center in this year's free agent class. So they've totally revamped the interior of the line. And now they've gotten in Ode Ingbo, I think is how you say his name.
I think that's a good attempt.
Really a big-time talent who's just starting to reach it. It was during the draft process that he tore his Achilles.
Oh,
okay. Okay, so he really didn't play as a rookie. And so a wasted year, just like with Amagaji. And he's just starting to come into his own. And he is a big edge. So he's like, and I was, going back and forth with Ballard texting yesterday afternoon. And he didn't want to lose him, but he knew we wasn't going to be able to pay him what he was going to get. And he didn't know what the figures. But here's the thing. Except for a couple players, the figures that have been tossed around by the agents over the last few weeks haven't come close to being true.
Oh, really? Okay.
Okay. Now, Milton Williams got more than people thought. From New England, he got $26 million. But there was people that were just the other day, they were saying Deo was going to get 20 plus. Okay. Drew Dahlman was going to get 15, 16, 18 plus, Fries was supposed to get 20. Aaron Banks supposed to get 18 to 20. They haven't even been signed yet.
Yep.
So, and I think one of the reasons the Bears went into the trade market was they go to Indy a week and a half ago, and they're talking to agents, they're talking to teams, and the general thought was the free agent class for the offensive line, these interior guys are going to cost a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they said, "No, I don't think I want to do that," and went the trade route. And
Very smart.
Yeah, so it worked out a lot better for the Bears. I posted just a little while ago. I go, the two trades and the signing take an offensive lineman out of the first round equation. People were throwing back to me, and I'm not going to argue with them, but it does. They just put $45 million round figure a year into the offensive line. They haven't taken one in the first round. They will take one probably day 2, but they're not taking one in the first round.
Yeah, I totally agree. I saw your post and I agreed with it instantly. The idea of them going and taking an offensive lineman when that edge position, or of a guy like Mason Graham falls down to 10, to me would make sense.
You got Harmon for more. You could you watch tape of some of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
They're bitches. And you go back to the introductory press conference by Ben Johnson. And the thing that jumped out, he didn't talk about any other position but this. Boy, that defensive line really fell off when they lost Billings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Have they sold it yet? Nope. I'm hoping that when Jonathan Allen became available the other day, that maybe that would be a situation. And when you look at what some of the guys his age are getting, they're getting 10 to 12. He was making 16.5. His salary this year would have been 16.5, but he's in Minnesota right now visiting. And generally, when you go on a visit like that, you get locked up because they won't let you out the door.
Right.
So I'm things are going to change. There's other guys out there. They're going to sign more guys. They don't have a wide receiver 3, but I can't see him drafting a wide receiver in the first round. I think it's going to be meat and potatoes for him.
I totally agree. J2K is wondering about nose tackle Bobby Brown III. Do you think he could be an excellent depth signing for the Chicago Bears?
I don't know him to say. I'm not as up to date on. There's guys I did at the pro level. Guys that I thought would be decent signings, but some of these people I don't know. I know the 2 they signed. I know that because I always thought in the back of my mind, Ode Bingo could be a strong possibility because if you look at some of the lines that Dennis Allen's had, he's had a big edge guy. And he had in New Orleans, he had Cam Jordan. Who is this guy? When you look at him, Cam Jordan. Now, I'm not saying he's going to turn out to be Cam Jordan, but it's that type of guy.
Well, and we saw Khalil Mack re-sign with the Chargers for $18 million, 1-year contract. But Greg, can you see a veteran type pass rusher like Mack? There's some names across the bottom of the screen who could maybe fit the bill, like Brandon Graham. He's 36 years old. If you can sign him,
tore his bicep again. He almost didn't go back last year or to this year, and then came back. He the only place he's ever played was Philly. He will retire an Eagle.
Okay. Well, I'm just thinking about somebody.
No, I when you look at the position, I equate the edge position to the quarterback position, especially when you look at the money.
Yeah,
they got the market changed twice in the last 6 days, but between Crosby and then Garrett yesterday. And what did I say about 1 million times? Myles Garrett was never getting traded.
You did say that, yes.
Okay. So But when you look at the money they got, they're getting quarterback money.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the best way to do it? You got to draft one.
Mm-hmm.
And you get one into the system, and you hope you hit right.
Yeah. And Kay makes a great point here. There are 30 draftable defensive tackles in this draft, according to many analysis. No need to, make a DT free agent signing. It's the deepest defensive tackle draft.
But they got to get an anchor. Now, so reality is they probably got to get two.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I saw that you posted an idea that I've been tossing around for a couple of weeks now, and that's the whole idea of trading down now. Because as you said in your X post, picks from, I think what you said, 9 to 17 are basically
I said 17. Well, it's funny because like Schefter, I've known this. You look at all these players, and they're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
I was on Sirius XM with Zigber Kasi on Saturday, and I said, it's like 52 pickup. Throw the cards up. and it's unlike any draft I have seen in years. And when we have Lance, we'll get Lance's feel on. He'll be on in about 15 minutes. And it's like you got your top few, and there's even no quarterbacks. Some quarterbacks will go. They don't deserve to, but they will. But after that, it's like the next 15, 18 players. They're all the same player. Yeah. It's who do you like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's who do you like? And J2K makes a similar point. He says, what team doesn't want to trade down in this draft? It's more about who they are trading up for. So
what it is that you become, because you got a draft, you got similar talent. So now you're looking at, okay, but I want this guy. And we got to remember, everybody's board is different.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so and then if you got a love affair, now what I'm afraid of, and I'm guessing here, totally guessing, is that because this draft is what it is, the value of trading down may not be as good as it has been.
So and points wise, if we were to use that point system, those points would probably be less if you were to redo it.
I'm guessing it depends, who wants the pick, and how far they got to come and how badly they want the pick.
Right.
I mean, if they really want the pick,
right,
you can squeeze them a little bit.
Yeah, the players that I keep thinking about that if they drop to 10, that I could potentially see a team call the Chicago Bears are players like Ashton Genty, Mason Graham, which the Bears would probably want.
I mean, we don't know what their board looks like or how they feel about these guys.
Right.
But yeah, theoretically, you could say, no, I'm going to stay there for those guys. Now, just looking at the way Poles was brought up, Kansas City took one running back in the first round, and that was like with the last pick or second last pick of the first round. Like since Andy Reid's been there, and he's a believer of you get them later. And this is a loaded, like the defensive tackle position is loaded. The running back position is loaded.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I saw in one of the NFL Network, or could have been ESPN, one of the mock drafts had, and this is just mind-blowing to me, Jackson Dart as the third pick over on the draft. The analyst said that's because quarterbacks are so needed that Jackson Dart would be the third quarterback drafted in this draft, third overall. So he had Sanders, and then the other kid, Ward, going 1 and 2, and then Jackson Dart going 3. Any possibility of that in your mind, Greg?
I don't see. The way the quarterbacks went last year, who knows? It takes one team, and you get and with the quarterbacks move now. It's when the coaches start getting involved, and they work with them. They have a private meetings with them, private workout, and then that's when the love affairs start. And
That
then
makes
it's like,
sense.
I got to have you. And so then they move up. Perfect example was Lance from North Dakota State. San Francisco fell in love.
Traded up to number 2, I think it was, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So, that can happen. So to say that the Mississippi kid would be out of the question, you can't say that because it could very well happen. And it's that kind of draft. And by the way, Eric just texted me that Josh Sweat from the Eagles went to Arizona, and the money wasn't bad. 4 for 76, so 19 a year.
Wow.
See, now they were saying he was going to get 25. You see, so all these numbers are coming in a little lower than what was anticipated. So the agents were really, I think, trying to work the teams at Indianapolis.
Yep. I agree. So I haven't seen the latest. I haven't gone to Over the Cap, and Evie was asking, do we know what the cap is now? But I got to believe that there isn't a lot of money left here for another big name signing.
Well, no, there's – look what Buffalo's done the last few days, and it's all been players from within. Okay, they're still over the cap.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if you want to create money, you can create money. They have never restructured any of the contracts for the big money contracts they have. There's money there. It's to you. The only time you want to restructure is a guy you know is going to be there. So if because then it comes back to bite you if it's a guy that, you figure is going to be here one more year and then gone. But somebody like Sweat or Moore, those type of guys, you can restructure those guys, and what you do, you convert their salary to a signing bonus, and it just immediately it has no effect on the player except he gets a big check now instead of checks during the year. And for the Bears, it makes no difference. It's just how it's accounted for.
Right. What do you expect the rest of this week could look like for the Bears?
Well, I think there probably could be 3 or 4 more signings. I mean, but now you're looking at, between last week and this week, they paid out some money.
Yeah.
So now you're looking at the 1-year, 2-year deals, not as much money. A lot of people thought that the wide receiver Patrick from Detroit was going to end up here. That's a possibility. But is he a guy you got to do today? You do him today, tomorrow, the next year or something. But, today is the big money deals. And then you're out of the first wave, and then you start going with other guys.
Right. And it's possible we may not see another Bears signing this week, and it could be, looking for bargains next week or so, right?
Well, yeah, but I think they want to know what they're looking at ASAP. It really gets down to exactly what you're paying them, and I know that Poles had told me he's always got a figure in his head on any guy they're negotiating with, and once he hits that figure, he isn't budget.
Yeah.
So it's now you can have a little bit of room, and it's like McGlinchey. McGlinchey he was okay with the average. He wasn't okay with the guarantee, because the guarantee, if the player doesn't work out, it's the guarantee that kills you.
Yeah. What I got a chat message here from CJ, and he says, "Is Dale really an upgrade over DeMarcus Walker, or is he just younger?"
Well, he's younger, but he's a lot more athletic, explosive, faster. No, he's
got a lot more
I
upside.
remember, because I chat with Ballard a lot. Player he was really excited about, And, Lance and Chris are close. So we can ask Lance what he thinks, even though he's a Texans fan. He lives in Houston.
Mm-hmm. Why would he do that? What about that contract signed by J.C. Horn and the Panthers? That
was a little surprising on the money.
Yeah.
Jalen's going to be saying, I think I need a little more money, boss.
Whereas Chris Godwin with the Bucks, it is said that he left millions on the table because he wanted to stay in Tampa Bay. Interesting.
Yeah, but somebody just put on here when we were here that he went to the Jets. So, just like a second ago, and he might have typed it wrong.
Yeah. Ooh, I will be checking on that one.
I know. This was just like a minute ago.
Yeah. I was talking about aging veterans and maybe even slightly injured veterans. What do you think about Joey Bosa? He was released, saving the Chargers over $25 million in cap space. Now, it is said that he is working with the 49ers.
Yeah, I'd probably go there, but he's an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, unfortunately.
It's like people said, Ryan Kelly for the center. No, Ryan Kelly. How about this? Ryan Kelly in 10 years has only played 2 complete seasons.
Oh, my goodness.
And he's missed 10 games over the last 2 years. Yeah. The Bosas, both of them get hurt.
Yeah, unfortunately.
They get maybe they're too built up for their bodies. I don't know, but both of them have a history of getting hurt a lot.
Yeah.
So and you look at it, the Chargers got rid of both, and who'd they bring back? They actually brought back the guy that's like 5 years older, 4 years older.
That's right. What about boy? I had him here and now I lost him. Zadarius Smith. What about he was released by the Detroit Lions and he's 34,
I think his
35.
Best days are behind him.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Jeff Willis has a question. I know he's a little light, but do you think Mikel Williams from Georgia is a fit for Dennis Allen's defense? I've been wondering lately if they might be serious.
I like him. He played hurt all year. Mm-hmm. He had literally all season. He had an ankle and played through it. Pretty good player. There's some question marks on the character on Pierce from Tennessee. And there's not criminality. And I might have mentioned this last week. One guy I talked to, a scouting director, said, he goes, I'll describe him this way. He's a wild horse who refuses to get broke.
That's not a good thing.
But ultra talented guy. Now, in saying all that, defensive linemen always got a little crap in their neck. So it's what do you want to deal with, and can you deal with it?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, if he's an older boy, he should be playing the offensive line.
Yeah. We got a report here from Adam Schefter. Thank you, Mike. The Jaguars have reached an agreement with former Ravens offensive lineman Patrick McCarry. We had talked about Patrick a little bit on this show.
Well, when they made all these signings they did, took the guards out of the equation. And I got to say one thing, because I got real critical about the Jackson trade last week. And I'm still skeptical. Okay. Missouri, show me. Real good player in Detroit. Wheels fell off in LA. But it turns out his agent is a very, very, very good friend of mine, Tony Agnew, one of the 2 agents. Bill Connity's the lead agent. Tony's the second agent, but it's Tony's company, EAS Sports. And Tony is actually the first agent I ever met back in 1984. That's how long we go back. And he was like, George Young never had a son. We used to call him George's son. He had Michael Strahan. A lot of we at one time we probably had 8 players at Tony's in New York, but he's a good guy. So I talked to Tony, and he goes, yeah. He goes, the whole thing just didn't work out well. Mm-hmm. He goes, it wasn't what the kid thought, what we thought. Gets to camp, and then they want to switch him to center, and so and it's like he hasn't played. He had played center in college. He played it at Rutgers, But he, as a senior, he transfers to Ohio State and plays guard. And then ever since he's been in the league, he's been a guard. And so it's like, I haven't played center like in 6 years or something. And actually, I looked at the games. He only played 4 games because he got hurt. He started at center in the first game, didn't play too bad. Then in the second game, the left guard got hurt. So he goes out to left guard and they put the rookie in at center. And so he plays, and then he gets hurt in the fourth quarter.
Oh, wow.
He breaks his clavicle. So he's got to have surgery on that, put a little rod in, not a rod, but a little plate in there so it heals up faster.
Mm-hmm.
He's back by week 10. But now, the rookie is a kid from Limmer from Arkansas has solidified the center job.
Mm-hmm.
But he got hurt, so they put Jackson in at center against Miami week 10. Actually played pretty good. I did every single snap of every game. And he had a bad snap. Snap one over the quarterback's head.
Mm-hmm.
And then he doesn't play again until week 18. In the last game of the season, when they were, they're in the playoffs, they're sitting the starters. And so they play him at right guard. So now he plays in 4 games. Didn't quite, for all intents and purposes, he played 4 full games. He played center, left guard, and right guard. And it's like nothing went according to plan.
Mm.
And so it was just, like Tony said, it's like a bad marriage. We need to get out and change. So, he's happy as hell, according to Tony, happy as hell to come on. And I asked Tony, I said, do you want to come on here? I asked him to come on today too. And he said, the deal's not official till Wednesday.
Okay.
So he said, that wouldn't be right for me to do that.
Yeah. Maybe we'll see him here next week. CJ's got one of the burning questions here is who's going to play left guard? Who's going to play right guard?
Tony's the left guard. And then the other, Jackson's played right guard.
Yeah, he has.
Okay, so, but Tony's been on the left side his whole career, and he's a
Hall of Fame.
He's an all-pro. He's one of the best in the game.
Right. So, but
you know who has Thuney?
Uh-huh.
You know who his agent is?
Oh, it's McCarthy, isn't it?
Yeah, Mike McCarthy.
Yeah. Good buddy. I love it. Do you think there is a chance that Thuney will go to right guard and Jonah will play the left guard because that appears to be Jonah's best position, and Thuney is a veteran who probably adapt faster and quicker to the right guard position.
That's a coaching decision. I'm not even going to try to do that. They got the center. If they hadn't gotten a center, it was funny because before Dahlman got announced, like 10 minutes before,
mm-hmm.
my next guy, I don't know who the Bears' next guy, but my next guy was Brown with Arizona. He re-signed with Arizona at like 5.5 a year.
Okay. Well, Greg, it appears that backstage our guest has arrived.
Oh, terrific.
So I'm going to put him up on the screen. He's got a quizzical look on his face, so maybe he's not getting audio, but let's find out. Lance Zierlein is with us now. How are you, sir?
Can you hear us, Lance?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, perfect.
How are you, sir?
Doing well.
Good.
I'll tell you now, I've known Lance about 20 years. Now, I got to ask him because he might not remember. Do you remember where we met?
Were you at the Papacitos during when we met with Jeff Van Gundy here at Houston and at the Shrine game?
No, it was, I think, maybe.
I told Ballard to send you to Nick's place, a little dive bar.
There was a place you set up for Ballard and I think you were there too to watch a Bears game.
Yeah, that was Nick's place.
Yeah,
that was Nick's place.
That's when it was.
Yeah.
Lance, this is the busiest time of the year for you, or actually probably it's relented a little bit because you're all done with your draft reports on NFL.com. And by the way, let me pay
No.
Oh, no.
I got 150 to go.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
how many guys are you writing up?
I write 500 a year.
Wow.
So I had 3 at about 350. I guess I've written. I'll finish more. I'm looking at the North Dakota State quarterback just now. I just stopped to do this show. So, I still have probably about 130 more to go.
My goodness. And let me, first of all, pay you a big compliment because I've been reading your reports now for probably as long as you've been writing. And it's the first place I go to. The fact that you get these detailed reports out so early in the process, there's other people that do it, but do it later in the process is such a gold mine for us draft followers. So thank you very much for the great work you do.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It used to come out earlier, but now we're down to like one editor, so it takes a while. Like now they're not coming out until right before Combine. They link them to Daniel Jeremiah's top 50 or to mock drafts, things like that. So that's the earliest you can start to see them.
Gotcha. I got a quick question, then I'll let you and Greg talk. There's a guy in our chat room, J2K, who has been preaching for Josh Simmons to the Bears at number 10. Then you do it in your mock. Tell us why you like Josh Simmons at number 10, because Greg is going to challenge you on that.
No, I'm not going to challenge him. I just don't think they'll do it. But go ahead.
Yeah, I saw that JT wanted it, so I just decided to do that. If JT wanted it, I said that's good enough for me, whoever JT is. I looked at it. I think that he's a guy that I don't have graded there, Greg, frankly, and I think there's some little concerns about maturity, things like that I've heard from some people around the league. So I don't know if he'll go there. I know that last year the kid from Yale, when he got his time, looked a little bumpy as you would expect since he missed.
Well, he missed all of camp, literally all of camp, and the first 2 weeks of the regular season. And what happened was, Lance, was that at the Combine, the doctors looked at him and thought he'll be good to go at camp. Well, they were wrong. He wasn't good to go until like the second week of September.
Yeah.
And by that time, for a rookie offensive lineman, especially an FCS guy, he's dead in the water. He can't, he can't recover from that. And by the way, for the people who don't know, Lance's dad was a former NFL offensive line coach and a really good one. Longtime NFL coach, Larry Zierlein. How long did he coach in the league, Lance?
Oh, man, he got in with the Cleveland Browns in 2001. He'd been at LSU, at Tulane, at University of Cincinnati with Mike Tomlin. And, I say Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin was a young coach who came in. He was there with Rex Ryan, Mike Tomlin, Jimbo Fisher. They had an incredible staff over there at Cincinnati. Wink Martindale. So, but he coached for 4 years with the Browns. With Butch Davis, 2001. Then he did a year with Buffalo Bills and Dick Geron before going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, retired, and then came out of retirement to go work with Bruce Arians again over with the Arizona Cardinals. So,
great.
I mean,
I got to interrupt for a second, guys.
Yeah.
We got breaking news.
Yep.
Grady Jarrett is a Chicago Bear.
Oh, some help in the middle.
Yeah. 3 years. Eric sent me 3 years, $43.5 million.
Yeah, he's still got something left. I mean, Chicago's building the trenches. I think Poles knows he has to get done. I thought the Dahlman deal makes sense. Guard, center, guard. Simmons is kind of, my thought there. My first mock draft had Kelvin Banks over there, who could play who could play tackle or guard, which I'm not convinced he's not going to be a guard in the league. But
I agree with you.
Now that some free agency, and this is always the thing with mock drafts, is they're basically the first ones are irrelevant. I just use them as thought exercises because once free agency hits, it changes everything. Pittsburgh Steelers, I had them drafting Matthew Golden, a wide receiver. Well, he just added DK Metcalf, so I don't think that's happening now. So it throws all your mock drafts completely. You have to change and alter team needs, and you have to figure out which teams, and this, Greg, you think team needs are off the board once they make a signing, but that's not necessarily the case. A lot of teams will look at a guy as a bridge player or potentially depth where they still want to get competition, maybe even for a starter that's in place at a position. So with the Bears, I just thought Simmons, Simmons is an athletic kid. He's got some talent. He missed a chunk of last year because of an injury. The decision to do that would have to be based on what you think of. What's the kid from Yale? You know his name.
Karan Amagachi.
Yeah, Amagachi. Depending on what you think of him is where you would prioritize a tackle spot, because you got one on the right side already. So I think that would determine whether or not you'd want to do that. Do you think you can get away with what you have over there? And if you do, you've already got a brand new interior. So there's a good chance that could be the case. I think it'd be a good spot to trade back, honestly. I do wonder.
Bingo. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, the problem is that's a dead spot to me. Once even the Jets, once you get to 7, 8 to about 16, to me, I think those are a lot of guys you're going to be drafting who do not have top half of the first grades in most drafts. So
let me ask you this, because this is what the way I look. I think this draft is stranger than any draft I've seen in years and years and years. Yeah. It's you don't have the names like they had last year, so it's light on that area. And I'm not saying it's a bad draft; it's just a different draft. But after you get those first few guys off, and a couple of those quarterbacks are going to go, even if they don't deserve to, then you can have a group of 15, 16, 17 guys that are basically the same guy. It's, who do you like better?
That's a lot.
There's not a big difference in talent.
Not a big difference at all. And that's why they say the heart of this draft is like getting to the 20s, right? All the way to the 60s, 20 to 60. That's a big gap. That's a big chunk. But that's what your value is, because a lot of teams are going to have, have guys. One team's going to have a guy 21, and another team's going to have a guy 54. And Greg, it doesn't really necessarily stack that way. I'm just kind of
No, I know what you mean.
It's more fine-tuned, but that's what I mean. One team will say, look, is there should we take a guy in the first round where we can get a discounted version of that same player in the second round? Should we take a guy on day 2 in the second round that we think we can get a discounted version on day 3 in the fourth round? We think there will be 3 or 4 players there that we think we can get a little bit cheaper. And that's where figuring out what the rest of the league, that's where mock drafts are interesting. I have a team that I've talked to in the past who they say they use I'm one of the mock drafts they use, and they've got about 3 or 4 different guys that they focus on because they want to get the best representation. And they did a study of who they think best has a feel for what could happen in the league relative to, who goes in the first 32 picks, 34 picks, stuff like that. And I try to think, and honestly, I try to think like Ballard is one of my mentors, one of my top mentors, really. And he taught me years ago, and I've always listened about how to think like a team. And hey, don't be scared. Swing your sword, swing the bat a little bit in the top 10. It's not going to go down like people think. And taught me about traits, taught me about what kind of players get pushed up boards, things like that, and who and when you can find value. And so I always try to look at mock drafts like that. But teams have to have a feel for where guys could go so they can properly prioritize certain positions relative to the strength of the draft and where to get the values. And like this year, it's a really good running back draft. So I think it's going to be curious. I want to know how many teams want to jump up there and grab those second round backs and how many say, screw it. I think we can get a starter in the 5th, because there's going to be starters coming out of the 5th round at the running back position this year.
No question. It's a loaded group, and it wouldn't shock me if 3 went in the first round. I was disappointed that Caleb Johnson, the Iowa kid, didn't run as fast as I thought he would.
Yeah.
I thought he'd be a sub 4.5 guy. He plays that way. But heck, his tape is just so damn good.
Yeah. The concern I have with him, Greg, is he's running to freedom all the time. Like that O-line did a great job of opening things up for him. And I worry about, is he a zone specific, is he a scheme specific running back, or can he, is he going to be able to do the same thing with gap attacks? If you are scheme specific, it is worth noting that those teams are going to look for you. So you're going to go to a team, if you're a scheme specific offensive lineman, running back, a quarterback who needs to be in a certain type of ball control, manageable, manage an arm that's an average arm. I mean, those teams look for you. They understand that's who you are and what you are for the most part. So, I was surprised he ran what I guess I got to see what the final time was. A 4.57 was what I was working off of. I don't know if that ended up being his official 40, but that was a little disappointing. And the other thing disappointing about it is his 10-yard split was 1.6. And 1.6 is not great. And if you're going to be a one-cut guy, you got to have bursts. Like that initial burst is the most important thing. So the 1.6 is a bigger concern to me than a 4.5 40 because Arian Foster was probably a 4.6 40, running back. And he was one of the best zone backs we've seen over the last 20 years.
Yeah, there's no question, but he's going to have a chance to retake the test, so to speak. We used to tell people when they came in, when we did the interviews, we'd say, we'd ask them if they're going to work out. And if they didn't work out, if they said they weren't going to work out, we tried to talk them into it. And only because the way we presented it was this is like an exam. And if you take the exam tomorrow and you don't do good, you got a makeup exam at your pro day.
Yeah.
But if you skip tomorrow and you go to your pro day and then you do lousy there, you're shit out of luck.
Yeah, exactly. And, in that Indy track, ever since they put the new track down, it's faster.
Yeah.
Like it's a fast course. So it's just a matter of how much time you've had to I understand teams who've been in the college football playoffs. Those players may not feel like they've had enough time to properly get ready for the combine. I get it. Very few people run the short shuttles and the L and the shuttle because they don't they think it's too slippery there and they just want longer time to get ready. And that's so gamed up now. So many guys run unbelievable times on those change of directions.
Yeah, it's practice.
Yeah, and you got all that time to practice. So I'm kind of the point where if you don't run a good time, I'm really concerned.
Yeah,
that's the best you can do.
Yeah, I've been saying that for years. You've been practicing 6 to 8 weeks at a training camp to get ready for this thing, doing the same stuff over and over. The red flag, you don't get all excited over a great workout. The red flag is when somebody has a poor time because you're expecting so much better, being that they've trained for it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And so it's getting a little tougher because so many guys now are passing on the combine workouts. And so now they've really got a lot of pressure on themselves. I just like it normalized. In a perfect world, you get to see everyone work out together. Because I tell you what, watching quarterbacks back to back to back to back from the floor is really, it really gives you it's a lot different than tape. And that's something I've learned over the years, Greg, is all my work comes on tape. I don't after that, I only got to go on the road to scout some games in person 3 or 4 years. And this is my 11th draft. And we cut back budget and I don't get to go on the road anymore unless I drive places here in Texas. And getting to be on the field, and I'm telling you this because you already know, it's different when you hear it come out of their hands, when you see them. And then at the combine, when you're watching guys stacked up, Quinn Ewers, there's this guy, here's this guy, and then boom, here's Will Howard, who didn't have much of an arm, like a really disappointing arm for a guy that big. It really stands out. But at the same time, it also, if you throw accurately, it doesn't matter as much. But he didn't throw accurately, which was a problem for Will Howard. I think his stock, we love the intangibles and the size and all that stuff, but I think you can only see a certain level of success there. But Tyler Shuck, the kid from Louisville, man, he was a dude on the field. Like he threw it better than anyone the entire day. Like you could really feel like this guy has an NFL arm, and you could see it quickly. I thought Jalen Milroe, I would have ran the 40. I would have tested and blown people away with my testing, because even if you're doing this because you don't want to, but I'm gonna hit on another point after this. But even if you don't want to change positions or anything like that, you don't want to even talk about it. I totally get that. But at some point, you want to make sure that you increase your value. And his value is not throwing a football. His value is not being accurate. It's not even as a decision maker, really, based on his tape this year. It's making explosive plays with his legs and his arm, because he does have a big arm. He can push it down the field. Who's to say that he washes out as as a backup quarterback in 3 years, but somebody doesn't say, well, let's make him Taysom Hill, and then he plays for another 7 years in the league, and he's got all the financial freedom in the world. That's something. That's maybe how I'd look at it. But I'm also older, and I've seen a lot of guys do this, and you don't think that when you're 21, 22 years old.
No.
The other thing is a buddy of mine who's working with him a little bit on some marketing stuff. He made a good point. He hadn't been training for it. So what happens if everyone's expecting him to run I think the Vegas odds on him running were like a 4.40. Well, that's not really, fair for a kid who's not training. Let's say he hadn't trained to run at all and he goes out there and runs a 4.52. Well, then maybe, I don't know that it necessarily hurts him, but maybe it creates some doubt about, his speed.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of what they do, a lot of it's agent driven.
Yeah.
And the agent knows what he's been doing and what he hasn't been doing. He may or may not run at Alabama's pro day. A lot of quarterbacks don't run. Justin Fields ran because he knew he could run fast.
Right.
But a lot of other guys, they don't want to do it. Who would be your comp for him? I got mine, and mine is actually Ballard's quarterback, Richardson.
I'll tell you who I got to see who I put on my write-up. I'm trying to remember. Oh, I had Cordell Stewart. I went all the way back to Slash.
Wow.
Because Slash that's a lot further back. But
no, we had him in Chicago.
You had him in Chicago, and I feel like he tried, and he actually told me this. I did a radio show with him a couple times, filled in, and he tried to be something. He wanted to fit that square peg into the round hole. There's a little different time in football where he said, "I want to prove to you that I can throw from the pocket." When the reality is, what made him special is he's unpredictable, and I thought Stewart's ability to run, his explosiveness. His ability to throw the ball with distance. I mean, we know – I went back and watched it again. It's a 74-yard pass that he makes Colorado versus who was in Michigan, where he beats Michigan on the Hail Mary, like an unbelievable distance, which is the same for Richardson. He can throw it – he can throw it that far too. But I just kind of I said, man, he was an outstanding athlete with a really big arm and not really a great guy if you sit him in the pocket all day long. So – that's kind of who came to me, and I sometimes will work all the way back on certain players. I don't like player comps, to be honest with you. All it does is get people talking shit.
I agree. George Young, when I started working for the Giants, so this is 41 years ago.
Yeah,
he just said the NFL doesn't practice Hinduism. There's no such thing as reincarnation.
Yeah.
And so that kind of sticks in your head.
Yeah.
Just those little things.
Yeah. Sometimes I like doing comps when a guy really, truly I don't like when I have to go search for him. But when somebody reminds me, like, there's something I saw with Ashton Genty that reminded me of LaDainian Tomlinson. And I'm not saying their styles are exactly the same, but LaDainian had a way of creating yards for himself when there was nothing in front of him, when they didn't have it blocked up. He had the ability to contact balance to get through contact and create through power. He had, and it's something that Kirby Wilson once told me, really great running back coach. And I had a chance to talk with Kirby 2 or 3 years straight. And I always try to learn from coaches in the league when I talk to them about what they look for. And he said, you got to be able to create with power or wiggle. But then I threw speed in there as well, because I think it's those big three. And he could create with power and wiggle. He had enough speed. He was faster at TCU than, later in his career. But I watch Ashton Genty, and he can create any way you need to. He can get away from you. He can create through power. He has an unbelievable contact balance and a base that he keeps steady under him. And he just kind of reminded me of that ability to create in a multitude of ways, even when it's not blocked up, that LT had. And that's kind of why I came to LT for my comp on him.
Do you remember what Tomlinson's size was? I don't remember.
I want to say 5'9", 209, something like that. I'll look it up here, but I think that's what it was. I remember he was behind – who was he behind? He was behind another running back who was pretty good at TCU, but this kid was – averaging over 8 yards a carry. And I'm like, man, who is this sophomore that is just killing it right now? And, so they have him at 5'10", 215, which is like the perfect size for an NFL running back.
Right. And Genty's 5'8.5". I actually thought he might be like
No.
5'07.6", watching him on tape a little bit.
So he was his combine measurement, Greg. It's interesting. 5'10", 221 at the combine. Ran a 4.46. Had a vertical of 40.5.
Wow, he is explosive.
Yeah, and a 10.4 broad and a 6.84 3-cone, which they weren't as dialed in on those 3-cone drills back in 2001. That's really impressive. Yeah. Almost Hall of Fame numbers, if I do say so.
Speaking of Hall of Fame, we're talking to a Texas Radio Hall of Famer right here. How long ago did you get into that?
Oh man, 97 was my first year. I was young. Got into it.
No, I mean, when did you get into the Hall of Fame?
Oh, November of this year.
Congratulations. That's a hell of an honor.
This past year. So I do my radio in the morning, 7 to 10 Central Time, and then I do my draft after that. So that's some long days. I mean, getting through 500 players from basically November through April with TV. I got TV tonight on NFL Network, TV Thursday. Move the Sticks podcast tomorrow. There's a lot going on here to get through over typically from November to April. It's a really, really busy time for me. And I've gotten to where I don't even look at players in the summer anymore. I've kind of got to decompress because it's a lot of players to get through in a short amount of time.
See, I'm already on next year's draft. I work for some different agent groups.
Yeah.
Doing stuff. So, like I did a running back. I don't know if you've done him for next year. He's going to Oregon. He's at Tulane the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Ran for like 2,800 yards. I can't remember his name. I did him this morning. Really a good back. And we're talking after contact guy and great balance. That's what this guy is. But he's not big. He's 200 pounds.
Yeah, but, Dylan Sampson is 200 pounds and runs with really good contact balance, good, some pretty good pop after contact. And he's another one that runs bigger than his size. There's a lot of times, Greg, you know how this goes. You'll see somebody 212, 215 pounds, and they don't run to their size. They either gather feet into contact where they don't love collisions, which, who does, but they don't run through contact, or they run so upright and with such a narrow base that they're toppled more easily. So, size is not the only determining factor in terms of a really good
strength. And I always look when I'm doing running backs at what happens after they get hit that first time. Can they keep their feet, keep their balance, they get extra yards, that type of thing. And can they run through the arm tackle? A guy that goes down easy, I just kill him.
Yeah. There's really because now you're just a guy. Like now you need it blocked up for you. And if you have to have it blocked up for you, then there's a variety of players who need it blocked up for them. Those are guys who are like 5th to 7th round backs who, they can end up having a good year or two, and then all of a sudden they disappear because you can find someone else like that. So if you got to have it blocked up for you, if you don't have vision and you don't have the power to pull, to fall forward, stuff like that, well then you're just like every other running back. You just maybe get lucky in the spot where you either get drafted or you sign as a free agent.
Lance, I got a couple of questions from the chat I'd like to share with you. The first one is from TJ. He wants your thoughts on Patrick Jenkins, a DT out of Tulane, and also Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. Your thoughts on those two players?
Yeah, I haven't seen Jenkins yet. I'm waiting. Right now you need to pop at your pro day a little bit. Well, I'll probably write up about 50 guys, 60 guys who really pop at the pro day. So, classic NFL draft fashion, I'm looking for guys who could be drafted, and that's primarily based on traits.
And
anybody that gets drafted that I don't have a scouting report for after the draft, I got to go back and write them. And I don't like having to write these prospects when the draft's over. I'm done. So I'm looking for guys with long arms, explosive verticals, fast times, traits. Those are guys who get drafted around 6 and 7 who can sneak up on you. I haven't seen Jenkins, but I'm sure I'll get to him. As far as Kenneth Grant was the other one.
Yes.
I think Kenneth Grant is I talked to somebody over at Michigan. So I think Grant on tape is just, pretty good, but doesn't always play to his size. But then I talked to somebody at Michigan who says he just doesn't know that he's bigger, stronger, more explosive than the other guy yet. It just hasn't clicked for him. But once he clicks, he's got a chance to have a higher upside than Mason Graham, and that's coming from inside the Michigan program. Is they think the floor is lower than Graham, but they think the ceiling is higher.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah, and I get that. It's what do you want? You want to swing the sword, bet on the traits, and maybe you love your defensive line coach, and maybe he's gotten it out of other players in the past, or you say I want somebody ready-made right now, who I know is going to play at a high level over the next 6 years, and that's Graham. I don't look at Graham as a spectacular player like some people do, kind of short-armed. I don't see him long lever his way around people. He plays hard, and he's always going to be a pain in the ass for everyone who blocks, and I think he's going to be a good player. I just don't know that he's going to be like what I'd call a 67 type guy who has a Pro Bowl impact. I'm not sure I see that with Mason Graham.
Another, sorry for interrupting. Another defensive tackle that I'd love for you to talk about. You've got him ranked number 5 on your board over at NFL.com, and that's the defensive tackle from Mississippi, Walter Nolan. Why do you have him so high and above any other defensive tackle in this?
When you say Walter Nolan, I have him 5 on my board, not of defensive tackle.
Right.
It's my highest grades. Now that grade. That's not necessarily slotted.
Okay.
What that is my grade based on how I think he's going to play at his position. And so if I slotted him, he'd still be inside my top 10. He's just better on tape than all the other defensive tackles. It's simple. He's explosive off the snap. He's explosive into contact as a shuck and shed type player. He's got the ability to play through blockers into gaps, so he can get into gaps and disrupt. He can disrupt with his power. He's a 3-down defensive tackle who can rush the quarterback at an impressive rate. I just think when you watch him play on all 3 downs as a run defender and as a pass rusher, he's disruptive. And I want to, I've been taught by guys in the league that you want disruption. You want guys who have an impact on the game. You want people who can make the game uncomfortable for the other side. My dad said this, the O-line coach says there's nothing worse than a guy who's explosive and who you have to make changes for with your blocking scheme because you're worried about him. And I think Walter Nolan has that kind of ability. Now, I can tell you more than a few people have told me there's maturity issues and stuff like that with him. They didn't always love some of the off the field, just immaturity from him at Texas A&M, for example. But I don't work for a team. I'll let teams make their own decisions on that. I have to rely on my conversations and background work, but I'm not drafting for a team. So unless the character is really bad or there's injury stuff or whatever that I know about, I'm giving a lot of these guys the grades I see on tape. And my tape grade for him is exactly where I have him because I think he's explosive and disruptive, and he has the physical capability, I think, to whip guys in the NFL.
What's your take on Harmon from Oregon?
I'm curious what yours is. Like when I watch him, he's kind of a straight up and down player. He's not a very good bender, but he's strong at the point of attack. So to me, he looks like a posse player, meaning he's going to be part of a group. Like he can kind of clog that drain in the middle of the field as a run stopper, but he's not going to be into the, he doesn't change directions very well. So when they do their stunt and they get into gaps and he gets up the field, he's not really a bend and change direction guy. So he'll miss a lot of tackles in the backfield. As a rusher, I think he's disruptive in terms of his power when he presses through an edge of an offensive lineman. But I don't know that he's going to be a real good playmaker. I think he's more of one of those guys that, man, we need to get stout in the middle and slow the run game down. Let's go get Derek Harmon because he's got long arms. He's big at the point, and he's not easy to move around. But he's not a great bender. He's not a player who I think is going to make a lot of plays on the other side of the line. So, you're going to prioritize him if you're really weak in the middle. You put a priority on him. I think in most drafts he's a second rounder. In this draft, I think he goes in the first, Greg.
Yeah, I went back and watched some Michigan State on him. And in all honesty, I think he looked a little better at Michigan State.
Yeah, I go back and watch. Yeah, I go back and watch. Now, he was heavier, I thought, there, too. He lost a little bit of weight. But I go back. I've got 2 years of tape. I got 23 and I got 24.
All right.
You always have to go back, especially for these transfer portal guys. And one of his teammates, Jamari Caldwell, the other defensive lineman who I'm sure you've seen, if you go back to Houston for him and his pass rush stuff, It's crazy. They have him rushing as a 5 technique and sometimes even outside the tackle. And he is like, for his size, he's got spin moves. He's got these great feet. Like, you see what he's capable of at Houston. And so sometimes, like, I thought Nick Scorton's tape at Purdue showed more power than at A&M. I think you got to go back and rely on some of the Purdue tape. And so when you have that, he can do it, Greg. And so I'm kind of with you. I thought the tape, now they asked him to do a little different things, but I thought there in the Big Ten, he was, that version of the Big Ten. Michigan State. I thought he had moments where he was a little bit more disruptive.
But now, you said you had a problem with the bend, and I didn't see that.
You didn't?
No, but what I do, though, like, I used to do this in our meetings, and when somebody says something and sees something that I don't, that tells me, well, I got to go back and look now, because so now I'm going to go back and look at him and go, Lance said this, so now I'm going to look for more of a straighter type player, and that, to me, that's how you learn. Because people, you could put 3 or 4 of us in the same room, watch the same tape, and we're going to have 3 or 4 different opinions.
100%. And I don't mind when I've got a different opinion. For one, I'll stand on my opinion, but I'm also not afraid to be wrong. And so if there's somebody that I really respect who thinks a certain way about a player, they see something, sometimes you question yourself, but you want to go back and say, man, did I see this wrong? Like, a lot of times I've done this now. This is my 11th draft, so I've written about 5,500 players, right? So I'll a guy will go earlier than I expect in the draft. And I want to go and I want to find out. And a lot of times it doesn't happen until 3 years down the road where you say, did I miss on him? Because sometimes I didn't miss, and that team just drafted him too early. And sometimes I just missed. Ballard and I learned a lot from him. I don't see DBs the same way he does. And sometimes, he's been wrong on some guys, but there's a lot of other guys where they end up being a lot better players than I expect them to be. And
I think he's one of the best DB guys I've ever been around.
Well, he's great at finding day 3 guys, which sometimes the biggest mistake you can make is thinking you can just do it, because you still need to get those Jimmys and Joes. Like, everything you shouldn't just be bargain basement on the back end all the time, I think, where you're trying to, you think you're going to do it with the Kenny Moores, because Ballard stole Kenny Moore. And Jalen Johnson, or Jalen, that's his name, from A&M, he's turned into a pretty good corner. But at the same time, sometimes you want to just go get I wish Chris would just go get a first or second round corner in some of these drafts and just have somebody a little bit more ready-made than always worrying about developing guys. Because I know he did that. He loved doing that at Chicago. He loved finding those guys with ball production.
I'll say this. We don't take Lewis Tillman if it's not for him selling him.
Yeah.
He did a hell of a job selling him.
Peanut Tillman, he got on his – I remember him telling me about it way back then. I think that's about when I first met him. And I remember the story on Nathan Vasher where Vasher ran slow and he went to his – you want to tell that story?
He calls it – he went back to time this guy 3 times now because he really loved him and he couldn't get him to run fast. So he calls me up. I go, what do you run? He goes, Coach, I got him at 4.51. And I just started laughing. I said, Ballard, you could tape jet engines to his ankles and he isn't going to run 4.51.
He ran a 39-yard dash.
So we take him in the 4th round. He goes to the Pro Bowl. Who cares?
Yeah. But but that's what, like, and sometimes I always just think, man, what are you seeing in these safeties? Safeties are hard for me sometimes. So I always want to learn.
Oh, they're impossible.
Yeah, well, a lot of times
they're not involved.
Because that's what I'm saying is, like, I've been trying to better my process. It takes a long time to get through safeties, but also a lot of the plays they make are not spectacular. Like, there's not a big plus play where it's a tackle for a loss or a sack or a touchdown or a contested catch. Sometimes it's a matter of how fast do you get to a guy and tackle him? How sure a tackler are you? What kind of angles do you take? It's stuff that's not sexy. It's not sexy at all. How diverse, how versatile are you on the back end? Can you play 3 different positions? Can you play over the nickel? Can you play in the nickel? Because a lot of teams are doing that now. Can you play down? Can you play on the back end? Are you a split safety, or, do you have the ability to range over the top and extend into more of a cover 3 look? Like, it's there's just so much that goes into it. And I love when someone else has a little different opinion that I can learn from. And I respect Dane Brugler a lot, who does this as well. Daniel Jeremiah and I talk about players all the time. And this is the first year that we've really seen some guys very differently. And frankly, I didn't see Gray's Abel. I missed them early on. I don't know what it was. I think my filter was just really, really hard on players early on in the process, where I was just, man, I was just really difficult grading guys.
I've always thought, Lance, that when you come out of a pro camp, so it's in August, and you've been in camp for 3 or 4 weeks looking at your own players, and then you're going on the road, and you start to do guys, you end up killing them because your mind is trained to watching pro players, and you got to get that out of your head. You're looking at college kids and kids that haven't even finished college yet. And so I think you grade them too tough. Now, I don't know if that's the way you are, but I think a lot of scouts have a tendency to grade guys tough early in the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's what I did, because I was a senior ball, like, ooh, this guy's a whole lot better than I thought. This is interesting. I'm in Houston, and the Texans have traded Laramie Tunsil to the Commanders.
No kidding. Mm-hmm. Wow. What'd they get for him?
I don't know. Aldo, do you have it?
Yeah, they got multiple draft picks, a second and a fourth, I believe it is, in 2026, and a third rounder this year.
Wow.
They were not crazy about his leadership in the locker room. He's kind of a me guy. He's kind of a me guy, and he had a C on his jersey, but he just, from what I heard talking to people, he just they didn't love, everything they talked about was finding the guys who are wired right. Like D'Amico Ryans is looking for a certain guy. So I think Tunsil's very talented, but I think it was time to get him out of there. It creates a hole for the Texans. But, it speaks to this conversation that we're having now about building a team. You got to build guys that are all in. And if a guy is a talented guy, but it's just about his next paycheck, especially if you're in the trenches, especially in your offensive line, where that's a heartbeat of your team a lot of times, you can only have that for so long, even when you're really talented like Laramie Tunsil. Yeah.
What do you think about what Tooch is asking here? Tate McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona, at the combine, he apparently turned some people off. Do you think that's going to hurt his draft stock?
Well, let's ask Greg. I mean, you've been in the rooms, Greg. How do you feel about it?
I love the talent, but I don't know what happened. What happened at the combine that he turned?
I don't really know either. I don't.
Okay, without you look at the talent. Like I don't think any receiver in this draft is good as the top 3 from last year.
Not even close.
Yeah. So, but that is what it is. He's a big X receiver. He's talented. He's going to play in the league. He's going to come in. He's going to be a starter in the league. But I don't see – I see a lot of good receivers in this draft. I don't see a special receiver. Like I've heard people say there's not a wide receiver 1 in this draft, and that may be a true statement. You got a lot of 2s and 3s, but no 1.
That's what I feel. I feel like Luther Burden's got a chance to be a lot better than people give him credit for. I hear about his production. His quarterback was terrible this year. Cook was way better on last year's tape. Because I know that because I wrote up Cook. After I wrote Burden, I wrote up Cook, and I'm like, wow, he was so much better last year than he is this year. But I think Luther Burden has a chance to be a little better receiver than some people are giving him credit for. I like Travis Hunter a lot, but I think his best position is at corner and then taking some snaps at wide receiver.
Right.
Ted McMillan, for me, just kind of cruises through routes, a little nonchalant at times. Doesn't mean he can do it. I think he can do it because Roma Dunze did some of that on tape too, where you become so confident in the 50-50 balls and your advantage on ball skills that you don't mind just kind of, if you got a one-on-one, like, hey, just throw it up and let's go play. Let's go rebound and see what happens. And Ted McMillan's going to win most of those. But in the NFL, it doesn't work that way. You got to, you need to play to your speed. Yeah, you got to play to your play speed. And I don't know that he's a very good separator, but I also didn't love his tape this year. And then I talked to a personnel guy in the league who said, well, he had a foot issue in spring that kind of carried over into the fall. So keep that in mind. Maybe take a little closer look at 23 and then half of 24, which was, which helped me a little bit because I just watching a lot of 24, especially the first half of it, I'm like, this guy's not even a first rounder. What do people see? And then when you go back and get context, and that's why it's good to have people who have a little different information or vantage points because it can kind of help you see things you need to see.
See, I've looked at more day 3 type guys only because I'm looking, like for this program and stuff, I can't see the Bears taking a receiver on day 1 or day 2. Right. So, but they don't have a wide receiver 3. They could sign somebody in free agency. But so I've been looking at those guys, and I think there's a lot of guys in that group. You just got to make sure you pick the right one.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about the day 3 group?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. 100%. There's guys, I like this kid Badger out of Florida. I think he's a really slippery player who's kind of interesting to me. I'm interested to see where Torrey Horton goes out of Colorado State, who
good player
got hurt this year. Yeah, really good player. I think he goes maybe just outside of the top 100, and I think he'd be a good player with the Bears.
You like the Williams kid from Washington State?
I think he's going day 2. Teams all think
really? Okay.
Yeah, teams all think they're – that's a funny thing you learn in this, Greg. Everyone thinks they got the little secret with him, and you find out he may not get out of round 2. So everyone thinks they got a secret until they find out it's not a secret.
Well, my other little secret is the other Florida guy, DK.
Oh man, he's got some juice.
I know he does, but they didn't really have a quarterback at Florida, but he's more productive at Wisconsin. So I look at the Wisconsin stuff.
Yeah. Now I thought the Wisconsin stuff had a lot of drops, which concerned me a little bit.
Yeah, there was. I mean, that's you got to look at that stuff. You always do, but the talent's there, and he can run.
I'll tell you who I liked on tape a lot, and it's because I see him ascending is Nick Nash out of San Jose State.
Yes.
He's not going to be the fastest guy, but man, is he competitive.
And he can run routes.
He can run routes. He's competitive. He's only done it for 2 years. He's been a quarterback. And I just think he's going to get a whole lot better. I see him going on day 3, maybe 5th round, but I think he's a player that you draft right now, and in 2 years he's a much better football player. And I love his competitive nature. I love his ball skills. There's a lot I like about him as a day 3 wide receiver.
No question. Well, buddy, look at it. It's 3:15, and we told you half hour, and you've stayed 45, which is we appreciate. But I know you got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I got 3 more players right up, and now Texans fans are all abuzz. I'm going to have to get on Twitter and start answering these questions.
Good luck with that.
Speaking of Twitter, how about that on day of free agency, Twitter blows out?
Oh,
yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Lance, you've been great. It's been really great to hear your opinions on so many prospects and more. Really, really appreciate you being here on Gabriel Talks Football.
Not a problem at all. I appreciate it. Anything for Greg, for sure.
You got it. All right.
Thanks, buddy. Really appreciate it.
We'll see you
later.
What a great guy. What a great guy. Yeah. I apologize to the 3 or 4 people who still had questions for Lance. We'll try to get him in the next time he's on. Maybe we can get him in right after the draft. Good stuff. And wow.
And what I like about Lance is, he's really got a passion for this. Mm-hmm. He wants to be good at it. You might not always agree with him, right? Which is fine. Sure. That's what happens in every single draft room. You got differences of opinion on certain players because every evaluator looks at them a little differently. They're looking for certain things, certain positions. And so, like offensive linemen, I can't stand straight-legged offensive linemen, so I bury them. They might play in the league, they might start in the league, but I kill them when I evaluate them because they can't bend their knees good.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this question from Sama. What are your thoughts on Oregon tackle Josh Connerly? Do you think he can play the left tackle position in the NFL?
Yeah. He's got some good tape. Marginal height, 6'4", like that. I think when I look at his body, I see a guard. He's got that kind of wider, lack of a better word, chunky, bulky body where your ideal tackles are more linear than he is. So I look at him, I go, guard, he's a guard. Now, Kenny, yeah, his tape says he could. He got really good feet. He's got long enough arms. What you do with him, the team that drafts him, and I think he's a marginal first rounder, but the team that drafts him is you try him at left, and if he doesn't work out at left, move him inside, and you might have a hell of a guard.
There's a question here that I want to make sure I get in. It's from Kay. He says, Greg, do the Bears get another 5th-round pick when Keenan Allen gets signed somewhere?
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
No, he's a free agent.
All right. He's a free agent.
And people say, well, will they get a comp pick? Well, somebody said something last year. Well, forget that. The comp picks are based on, the total of what you signed minus the total of what you lost. Okay, so, you could throw just something ridiculous out in the air. Tevin Jenkins could get a $20 million a year contract somewhere. Say, oh, we're going to get a 3rd-round pick for that. No, we're not. Because of the other guys you signed. And now Grady Jarrett, he doesn't count in the formula. He got cut. He got, in fact, he might have got released this morning.
He was this morning, yes.
Okay, so I mean, it was that quick that they moved on that, which was nice. And that's a good football player.
Yeah.
And we go back to that, we were saying at the beginning of the show, that press conference where Ben Johnson said, when Billings wasn't there was a big drop-off. Well, guess what? That's the guy who can rotate with Billings.
Yep, indeed.
And so you just took care of that position.
Yeah. I mean, doesn't this point more and more to the possibility that the Bears are going to take a skill position player in the 1st round?
It's a possibility. It really is now. I mean, it really depends how it falls.
Yeah.
You could aim towards it and then somebody else can take a guy. I mean, who are you going to take? The only one that I would take is Genty at that position. If I was going to take a skill guy, there's not a receiver I'd take.
Right. Yeah, definitely not a receiver. What about Tyler Warren, who's considered the best tight end coming out of this class, and Colston Loveland from Michigan? He's not too far behind.
Off an injury. I don't know how bad it is.
Yeah.
Warren, well, you just signed a guy, so you got to figure all these things. It's all part of the equation. Komet's making money. He's your proverbial move tight end.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now I did this exercise last week because people say, well, that's what Chicago doesn't have. Well, I went back and really looked at Detroit, and Detroit only had two their backup tight ends barely played. And like between the two of them, they had like 12 catches or something, So, and their guy was a combo guy. He's like Komet is, and he can block or he can be flexed out. Mm-hmm. But excuse me, when they signed the guy they did, Smythe, who's actually a pretty good athlete, but he's more a Y than a move guy. And that told me right away that they're thinking of getting Cole Komet involved as more of a move guy, being flexed out.
Right.
And use it because Cole's a really good athlete.
He really is, yeah.
And you could probably even take 10 pounds off him and say, and he's going to be a step or two faster because he wouldn't have to be that primary blocker. But again, that's throwing darts at a wall. That's up to the coaching staff. Would that be in the realm of possibility? Yeah. You could say, yeah. I still think this is meat and potatoes. That's the way they're going to go. And just for like what Lance said too, you're going to get guys in the 5th round that are, like running backs. And we've been saying that all along. We've been saying that for weeks, so, and history says you get guys that turn out to be really good.
Mm-hmm. Got a question here from Jay Grizz. He wants to know, what kind of a grade would you give the Bears so far on these moves? First day of legal tampering, and they pick up.
Don't use that word. I hate it.
What should I call it?
I hate it. It's in fact, the league even got rid of it. It's called free agent negotiation period.
Okay. Well, before
I mean, legal tampering is a misnomer.
it really is.
So
yeah, because now, well, it's 2 seasons before the start of the new football year, and so it makes sense to give teams 48, 72 hours to start negotiating, so that when the new year happens,
but they started a week ago. I mean,
right.
I mean, but they all do it. And know what it is, like last year, Atlanta got in trouble, lost the pick.
They lost the pick.
And the reason was, it's not because they did it, it's because they got caught, because Cousins made the mistake. Oh, I was talking to so-and-so, shut your mouth. And that was the mistake, that it got out that he was talking to one of the coaches, when theoretically, all these guys the Bears signed to, not the UFAs, not the guys like Grady Jarrett. Hell, he's a street free agent. You can, they can bring him in tomorrow. They can bring him in today.
Yeah.
But the other guys they can't bring in until Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now the guys they traded for, those don't become official until 3:00 on Wednesday.
Okay.
When the league year starts. So, can you talk to them? I guess you can talk. It's a trade. You can talk to them, but you can't bring them into your building. They can't sign the contract. It's not an official trade. So if you notice, the Bears haven't said the word about any of those guys, and they won't. They will on Wednesday,
right,
when it becomes official.
So what about that grade that Jay asked you about? Are we giving them an A?
Well, you know what? I don't like doing that, and I'll tell you why. Because and you're going to see tomorrow that, like, you open up ESPN and here are the grades for the first day of free agency. Well, you know what? You know when to grade it?
At the end of the
season. Tell me about mid-season next year, when you find out how these guys played for their new team.
Yeah.
Because you got to say, okay, on paper it looks great.
Mm-hmm.
But the game's not played on paper.
Yeah. But from a strategic standpoint, on paper, as you say, it made a lot of sense for him being Ryan Post, to pull the trigger on those 2 trades for guards. Does it bother you that their primary positions, the positions that they play best, are both left guard or not an issue?
No, okay. I don't think it's an issue. If there was a tackle, it'd be a different story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But at guard, it doesn't worry me, because the tackle's got so much more space. And like I said, I saw Jackson playing right. I've never seen Thuney play on the right side, but I haven't looked hard enough. I could probably go back a few years, and when he was with New England, he might have played on the right side. I don't know that. But he's always been a good player. But more important is that he is the guy that you needed to lead the room. He right away walks in the room. He's the bell cow. No, he might not be the bell cow like Olin is, personality wise, but he's got the skins on the wall. He's been a Pro Bowler. He's been an All-Pro. He's won Super Bowls. He stayed healthy. I mean, he's done it all, and everybody speaks very, very highly of him.
Yeah, sensational. Let's see if I got some more questions here. We have so we addressed the Keenan Allen.
Well, I got to say one other thing too. Another agent I was talking about. I was talking about Jackson. Mm-hmm. So this guy doesn't. I mean, he's met Jackson. He doesn't represent Jackson like I said about Tony. He reps a couple of the Detroit players. One of which is. One of the linemen, I can't remember which one. But anyway, he tells me, he goes, they all loved him in Detroit. He goes, I don't know what happened in LA, but they all loved him in Detroit.
Yeah, I've
He
heard
goes,
the same reports.
his teammates, his line mates,
Right.
the guys in the room really loved him. So when I had two different people tell me stuff, and my original thing, you know, what happened in LA came from friends of mine that work for the Rams. So that's, you know, I'm getting firsthand. And you know what's funny is that this came back in like November or December. And we're talking, and it's like, how come this guy's not playing? You gave him a lot of money, you know, and just like not even thinking that he's going to be available. And it just didn't, you know, not what we thought we were getting. And really what it came down to is both parties were like the same way.
Yeah. Well, and it almost seems unfair that anyone would criticize Jonah Jackson for his play last year because it was injury-riddled season. I mean, he had a preseason injury.
I mean, he got hurt once. He got hurt in the second game, broke his collarbone. Okay, so he missed time, and he was ready to come back, but he played in that Week 10 game when the guy Limmer, who took over the center position, he couldn't play. So he goes in and he plays. But by that time, in that between Week 2 and Week 10, the Rams said about Limmer, that's our guy. Did you do Bo Limmer at all last year from Arkansas?
I think, didn't you do it?
I did him. He was a good, strong guy.
Yeah, I only got my information from you on Bo Limmer.
And so they made the decision, and he was like a mid-round guy, like a fourth-round guy or something.
Right.
And they made, no, this is the guy, and he's young, he's a rookie, we're going with this. So then they had their mind made up.
Right.
So it just, the injury didn't help.
Yeah.
But also the fact that he was going there expecting to play guard, and in camp they move him in the center because they don't have a center. And they didn't, and at that point they didn't trust that Limmer could play center.
Right.
Because he's a rookie.
Right. And they were probably planning on setting aside some money for the big acquisition that they did, which is Devontae Adams, the wide receiver. I mean,
well, yeah, but that. Oh, you mean for this year?
For this year, yes.
Oh, well, yeah, no. I mean, it was I knew back in December he was going to be available. I thought they might even cut him, but it was, you know, they it was going to be one and done there because, you know, they paid him all that money, but the way the contract was structured, it really didn't cost them a lot to get rid of him or to trade him. Yeah.
All right, we're already getting people worried about stuff, and this person, the lazy 151, I worry about Dahlman's pass pro. Not really excited about that, yo. He's Montez Sweat on the right-hand side. Don't know much about Jarrett, but Jarrett does feel solid. What do you think about Dahlman's pass pro? He's known as a better run blocker than pass.
Yeah, but his, you know, I watched enough thinking that he might be here. Not, you know, and he's good. You know, if the other guy had Evan Brown, I think Evan Brown's a better pass blocker, a little more stout. But as a run blocker, he might be the best run blocking center in the game.
Yeah.
Okay, but he's not an elite pass blocker, but he's a good pass blocker. But now he's got two guys that on each side that have been Pro Bowlers. Yeah. And that helps you too.
Indeed. Well, and I think, you know.
And put it this way, he's 43 steps ahead of what was there last year.
That's for sure.
And Coleman Shelton, by the way, re-signed with the Rams.
Coleman Shelton, 1-year contract, going back to the Rams, and he'll battle with Bo Limmer for that starting job.
No, yeah, that's right. Limmer, he will. He'll be Bo Limmer's backup.
Yeah, indeed. What about are you any concerns about Jarrett's age? Grady Jarrett, I think he's 33. Let me double check on that.
I don't know. See, I know he's been in the league 10 years.
Yeah.
No, he's not going to be a full-time player.
Right.
But I'll tell you what, they gave him some pretty decent money now.
Yeah. Okay. He's
That
only
part-
31. He's only 31. Yeah.
Okay, no, yeah, but let me do this. I'm gonna see how much play time he's had.
And the Bush song says Grady was a captain. Seems like we are trying to manufacture leadership and character,
Well, I don't know if it's manufacturer, it's get leaders.
acquiring leader and character and character guys. You agree with that assessment from
Yes.
Bush songs?
Yes.
Bush songs.
Okay. You go back. Where's his?
So what are you looking up? Grady Jarrett's salaries, or
Oh, I got the wrong. It's Grady Jackson, right?
Grady Jarrett?
Jarrett. I put Jackson.
Yeah.
Okay. Grady.
Looking for other questions here. Remember when everyone J2K already flashed that up? J2K wrote earlier. Remember when everyone wanted polls fired? Since then, head coach Ben Johnson, and he's fixed the trenches. We'll see.
Okay. Here's I'll go back just to 20. 20, he played 16 games, started 16 games. 21, played 17 games, started 17 games. Played in 17 and started 17. 22, played in 17, started 17. 23, played in 8, started 8. 24, played 17, started 17. Except for 23, he don't miss time. And you go back all the way back to his rookie year. And he only started 2 games his rookie year. So now how many sacks is he? He's got 36 and a half sacks in his career. His best year was 22. He had 6. He had 2.5 last year. Yeah, he's an anchor.
Yeah.
That's what he is.
Do you put much stock on a veteran like that helping younger players that they'll acquire at the defensive tackle position, and even Jervon Dexter and Zach Pickens? Or is that just the coach's job?
I think Pickens better fire it up a little better. He could be in trouble.
I think he's going to have a hard time making this team. I really do. We'll see. I got a question here from, I think it was J2K. Yeah. He says, do you extend Tooney? His contract ends at the end of the 2025 season. So maybe that money is needed to extend Tooney and the slot corner, Kyler Gordon.
Well,
hard to tell because you can.
I there's some stuff I know, but I can't say yet. I'll tell you off the air, but I just as far as Tooney. So
okay. Well, I can't imagine that they wouldn't try to extend Tooney. You know, with the Montez Sweat acquisition, it happened about 10 days or so after the trade, and so maybe that's the
not even. It was like 3 days. They got him
that quickly.
Yeah, they got him like on a Tuesday, and by Friday he had a new contract, or Thursday he had a new contract.
Yeah. J2K says, we've talked about a future need, possible draft pick is a linebacker, the linebacker position. Have you watched Stutzman from Oklahoma? He really likes him.
I cannot see them taking a linebacker until late.
Like day 3, right?
Yeah, you only play 2. And you know, Edmonds is going to be here this year. And I think in a different scheme, he's going to be a different player. So we'll go. And TJ's already pretty good. I was kind of surprised that they didn't tender. Okay, I've gone brain dead. What's his name?
What position? Oh,
the linebacker from the local kid,
Sanborn.
Yeah, but it wouldn't shock me if they bring him back because I mean the tender's over $3 million, and I looked up. You know, he played 22% of the plays, so you're going to pay him over $3 million to play 22% of the plays. And but you know, you give him $2 million or something like that, and so but let him hit the market. Maybe he'll hit a home run somewhere. And then go from there.
Mr. Inglewood wants to know, are we going to be covered too heavy in 2025? And a lot of people have been asking me that
I
question.
can't answer that exactly how
Yeah.
he's going to run that.
Allen does have the reputation of playing a more aggressive man-to-man defense, so we could be seeing more blitzing and more of a reliance on the defensive
He
backs.
likes the pressure. I know that.
Yeah.
Put it this way: you're not going to be seeing, and people say, was he a 1 or a 3? Well, in this game, just in the little I've seen, it's really 2 defensive tackles because they line them up. Sometimes they're both lined up as a 2 over the guard. He moves them around. You don't have a strict 1 and a strict 3.
It's going to be fascinating to see what they do with this talent that they're acquiring, and of course the draft is coming, and we have not traded any of the important picks in this, despite all these acquisitions. So that's great news. Greg, when do you want to do the next show?
Next week, like usual.
The early part of next week. Now, if something major happens this week, I'm going to text you, and then maybe we can jump on for a half hour or something.
I'll be doing Swifty Friday, but that's
Swift Sports Network Friday afternoon. Greg Gabriel
Friday
at
noon and it's strictly an hour. Sometimes we go an hour and 10, but it's strictly an hour. But yeah, it's not like I go anywhere. I'm here all the time.
Excellent. This question here from Mr. Englewood is one that I was talking about a bit yesterday on social media. Austin Booker. I expect there to be a jump in production.
I do too. I'm also now he doesn't have a big frame,
right?
But it wouldn't when you look. I mean, he's narrow. And I was thinking about this yesterday too. Is it wouldn't shock me to see him be like 265 this year.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't know if he can get. No, he probably can because he was 252, 253 at the combine a year ago. It's he's narrow in the hips and stuff. So, excuse me, and he's long-legged. So he's never going to be a 275 guy. But I'll tell you what I like about Austin Booker is that he never stops playing hard. Yeah. He's still learning, but that sucker never stops playing hard.
He's got a great attitude. Let me squeeze this question in here. A safety. The Bears need a safety. What do you think about Xavier Watts from Notre Dame?
I love him.
Yeah.
He's not a 1. He's a day 2 guy. Got great ball skills.
Yeah.
I'm not, from what I understand, Brisker's fine. Okay, so do they need to take one? I mean, if they need to take one, they'll take one.
Yep.
I don't look at it as a huge need, but it could be. I mean, maybe they sign somebody in the next day or 2. Or later today. Does anybody know has Fries or Banks got signed yet?
Banks, no. Let me see. Fries. I'm doing a quick search here. No, he is still available.
Yeah, see there.
As of 45 minutes ago.
Okay.
So, do you have some interest in Fries?
Those guys are supposed to be big-time money guys. And when I was texting back and forth with Ballard, I know what he has on the table to keep Fries.
Okay. Banks went to Green Bay, I'm being told here, by Paul Johnson and a couple of other people. Let me see.
That's a good signing by them. Because we don't, doing the show, we're not. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, we don't know what's going on, and all I'm seeing from Green Bay fans is they pay too much for Aaron Banks. What are they, crazy? So I love it when Packers fans are upset. So the most entitled fans.
Some guy that this morning had a post out there that Bears fans are not thinking they're going to get Dahlman. He's coming here, and so I saw that. I think. Did you reply to it? Yeah, I replied. I put laughing faces and then clowns.
4-year deal worth $77 million for Aaron Banks to play in Green Bay.
Just exactly. They said 18 to 20.
Yeah,
That's
wow.
right. That's there.
Mm-hmm. Lauren Cox, our buddy who works over at Locked On Bears, says, I wonder if our general manager, Ryan Post, tried to sign Tooney to a contract extension before today because all of these numbers could be driving Tooney's
He
price up.
He doesn't. He's not a Bear yet.
But, well, yeah, you can't negotiate a contract extension because he's not.
He's not a Bear until Wednesday.
Okay. I'll let Lauren Cox know that. He should know better. He's so good at his job.
Now, could you have done a deal?
Okay.
Okay. Could you have agreed on a deal? Yeah.
Yeah.
It can't be official.
Right.
It can't, and they can't announce it. Could they do it? But I already got the answer. But I'm just not going to say.
Oh, okay. Well, then
I'll tell you.
I'm going to end this show so I can find out.
Well, no, only because I told you who the agent is.
That's right. Indeed. All right, everybody. That is our show, Gabriel Talks Football. Many thanks to Lance Zierlein. Make sure you go over to NFL.com. You know what I do? I go to Google and I ask for a scouting report on a player. It always comes up first. Lance's scouting reports always come up first, and they're excellent reads with strengths and weaknesses and some quotes from players or executives that he's talked to. Maybe he's even quoted Greg a few hundred times on there. So many thanks.
Is a really good people.
He really seems like it. Seems like a great guy. And of course, Greg Gabriel, you can find Greg at GGABE Football. You got your everything's open so that you can get some new followers out of this.
Everything's open.
Okay, good. By the way, I went over to Blue Star or Blue Sky, whatever that other.
I did that too, but I thought there was only one. In Rappaport's like the only guy. Like Schefter doesn't have a thing on there.
Schefter just joined a couple of days ago. Yeah,
but I didn't see it. So because I put it in, and then Dan Rossini's on there, but Pellicero's on there, but he used it like a month ago.
Yeah.
Rappaport was using it today because he wanted to try to get stuff out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw him on the air taking 20 minutes to send out a tweet because he was doing it to these different apps. But anyway, the place to catch Greg is on X, again, at GGABE Football. I'm Aldo Gandia. We'll see you next time, everybody.